Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I was hoping to share a few thoughts today that maybe will be helpful to some of you. Um, so today I woke up very much on the wrong side of the bed. Who knows why? Maybe it's because I didn't sleep that well. Maybe because I am having a hormonal morning. Possibly, can't confirm or deny, but that's on the menu. And maybe there's no reason at all. Maybe that's just how it works. So I have to say, on this particular morning, I am so grateful not to believe my thinking especially when I know that my state of mind is rather gray. And I can share a couple of funny little anecdotes. The red flag goes up for me when I find small things irritating. Like in the morning, if Jason is my husband, Jason, and partner in Blue Dot Coaching, if he is filling the silence with whistling and humming little ditties, and I find that irritating, well, the red flag quickly goes up for me that, oh, this might be a good morning not to take thinking seriously at all. But with that, I'm very grateful for that. But I wanted to share a metaphor that I think really sort of brings to life this dynamic of our thinking not being as real as we think it is, or not real at all, which is something you have to really see for yourself, experience for yourself. It's not something you should take anybody's word for. But let me explain the metaphor and then give you a few examples and take it from there. The metaphor is basically like watching a movie on a screen. When you go to the movie theater and there's a movie playing, you go because it gives you a vivid experience, right? You get sucked into the movie. Hopefully, it's a good one. And you experience all kinds of emotions watching this movie, right? So maybe you can get swept into anger and sadness. You might cry. Maybe it's a horror movie and you feel terrified. Who knows? But that's really why we go watch movies for the most part, because it gives us a really powerful experience. And there's something enlivening about that. But the thing about going to the movies is we generally don't get fooled into thinking that what's on the screen is real, right? No matter how strong our emotions are, our sort of the vividness of our experience of what's on the screen, even if we get really sucked into it to the point where the movie theater kind of disappears a little bit in our consciousness, at least momentarily, and then when the movie's over, we almost wake up from that, we still don't deep down inside think it's real. Why don't we think it's real? Well, for a very simple reason, that we know how it works, right? We know that movies are made somewhere like Hollywood, made by actors. We read about that. We know how that part works. We know that there's a projector. We know there's some technology. It gets projected on the screen. Like, we know all that stuff. And when we sit in the movie theater, we don't have to, no matter how strong the experience is, no matter how sad we might get, and maybe we're crying, or maybe we're just in huge suspense and we break into a sweat, we don't have to talk ourselves through that this isn't real, right? We just experience it. We just relax into the experience. Maybe we like it, maybe we don't, but either way, we relax into it and just experience it. And just the knowing of how it works is in there doing its magic, which is reminding us deep down inside that it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. It's just a movie. And the other cool thing is we don't have to go scene by scene in the movie, character by character, event by event, convincing ourselves, oh, but this one's not real either. The one before that wasn't real, and the next one isn't real, and what that person did isn't true or real, and so we're okay, right? We don't have to go to the content of the movie reminding ourselves that it's not real. The knowing of how it works is an integral part of the experience to keep us from falling completely into a hole and getting up and freaking out. So what I'd like to suggest to you is that our thinking works exactly like that as well. That we have a movie running in our head. which is a constant stream of thought just flowing through us, right? It is just a gift that we have this constant creative capacity to create our experience moment to moment through thought. And that experience, that thought experience, changes constantly. There's constantly a new movie playing. And it causes us really strong experience. It's a very vivid experience. It's so vivid that we actually get fooled into thinking it's true or real in some objective sense, when actually it isn't. It's just like a movie on a screen, right? And I take it sometimes a step further when I'm talking with people, and instead of an old-fashioned movie on a screen, I envision a virtual reality helmet that somehow projects an experience on the inside of the helmet, and that makes it look completely real because it's virtual reality, and everybody's walking around with a separate one, which is sometimes what we refer to as separate realities. It's just that as everybody gets fooled into thinking that what's on the inside of their virtual reality helmet is the truth, that gets us into quite a lot of trouble, right? And in the same way that simply knowing how it works when we're in a movie theater keeps us safe from freaking out about the experience and doing something odd and unhelpful, in the exact same way, with our thought experience, moment by moment, every moment of the day, knowing that it's an inside out job, knowing that it's a thought experience, no matter how vivid it is, keeps us from taking it too seriously and making huge messes in our lives with other people, with the people around us. That knowing is what keeps us from going down the rabbit hole of freaking out about other people's behavior, choices, words, actions, or the things that the little, trivial things that happen to us, all the way to the huge tragic things that happen to us. And so I've often, especially early on, when I'm working with people, or sometimes when I'm just sharing with someone close to me, maybe a friend out on a walk, people often ask me, but how do you know that it's just a movie? Like, it seems so real, and nothing in what we're taught as we're growing up suggests that we shouldn't believe our thinking. In fact, it's the opposite. We get these messages that our emotions are important and real, and so are our thoughts, and that we need to process and analyze and on and on. And so, how am I so certain that this experience I'm having, as vivid as it is simply a thought created virtual reality that has no basis in truth, so to speak, an objective truth? Well, the first thing I would say is everyone needs to come to that answer in their own way. It's something you just have to experience. You just have to be curious about and see for yourself in your own life. So please don't take my word for it. That said, how I know with utmost certainty, like absolutely unshakable faith, that it's just a movie in my head, there's several things. The first is, as I've noticed over decades, really, how it works, noticed how my own thought experience works for me. I've noticed that thoughts change constantly, and what looked like absolute certainty about what I thought or felt about something in one moment or one day or one year changes dramatically, changes with my state of mind, changes as I grow and have insights, changes from one moment to the next for all kinds of reasons. And noticing the transient nature of my thought experience about the very same outward circumstances has made it look pretty clear to me that there's nothing true about my thought experience about those circumstances in any given moment. So, for example, a very trivial example, this morning, if let's say hypothetically, my husband Jason had used a really good hand towel to clean the floor and then left it wet for 2 days on the floor, if I have a reaction to that, it means only one thing, and that is I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Because on a day when I woke up on the right side of the bed and I'm feeling very sunny, I would find that endearing and entertaining. Knowing that and experiencing that about a million trivial things, and then many medium level things, and then over time also about really serious things, noticing that same dynamic, that the very same circumstance can look hopeful, funny, cute, loving, compassionate, you name it, from a good state of mind, and that same circumstance can look hopeless, full of despair, or annoying, or frustrating from a different state of mind and state of being on a different moment or a different day. Having seen that over time about everything in my life, with no exceptions, over decades really now of noticing how this works, has left me with no doubt at all that it's just a transient thought experience dependent entirely on my inner landscape in that moment, on my level of awareness, on a whole host of things that are absolutely internal, not external. The other way that I know for sure, which is often actually the easiest way to see this, the truth of this metaphor, right, this understanding, is to see it in other people. So when I see somebody else around me, someone I care about, get really upset about the car breaking down or the internet not working or about, some other thing, or about the weather or about traffic, and to see somebody get really worked up and really have a strong, vivid experience of frustration, it's just really clear from the outside that, well, yeah, you're just having a bad moment, right? That movie playing in your head, there's nothing true about it. Now, we can be really compassionate about that because I do it too. We all do. So it's not about judging or lacking compassion. It's just about understanding. And sometimes it's easy to see that dynamic in other people. We see it all the time. People getting really caught up in their story about somebody else, their story about a slight, right? That somebody else did something and that it was obviously intentional and must have meant to be hurtful. And then the stories mushroom and you watch someone spin out. It looks pretty clear from the outside of that experience because you're not having the vivid emotional experience they are. You have some distance from it. It looks pretty clear that, they're spinning out on a thought created story about that incident or about those actions that really doesn't have any basis in fact. It's not true. And sometimes it will resolve, and you'll watch even the resolution that they'll find out from that person, oh my gosh, that's not what I meant at all. I was having a bad day, or I was doing something different and had nothing to do with you. And it's nice when it clears up, when that person actually gets to see that that thing you're upset about had nothing to do with you and wasn't meant that way at all. And I think we see that happens all the time. What's sometimes harder to see is it's the case 100% of the time about everything. That's where sometimes, for some people, it feels like a stretch to see, like, I can see that about the trivial things, but the things that really matter, it's different. Well, I would really urge you to be open and curious about whether that's true, whether it's somehow different about the things that feel bigger, somehow more important or more weighty, if you will, because it really isn't different. And, the interesting thing is, just like in the movie, it's not true that if we feel more in a movie, if our emotions are bigger, well, then the scene must be real. Like if I'm really feeling upset in the movie, well, this scene must be more real than the one that was lighthearted where I didn't feel very much. Well, we know that's not true. It's that same kind of dynamic. And the deeper that knowing gets in ourselves, the deeper that knowing has gotten for me, that all of it is a separate reality or a virtual reality created in my little helmet, and that it's a separate reality from somebody else, from anybody else, that we can keep ourselves from making some pretty big messes and keep ourselves from going down some roads that really harm our relationships and create conflict instead of keeping us feeling warmly and connected to the people around us. And sometimes just keep us from making silly little messes. Like this morning, for example, as I've shared, I was clearly not in a great frame of mind. And, it's, I'm very open and verbal about it because it's just my nature. And so I will just come right out and say to Jason, please don't take anything I say today seriously. Like, let me say the stuff anyway. I'll do my best not to make messes, but if I make messes, A, don't take me seriously, and B, please forgive me. And he just laughs. And of course, he doesn't take it seriously. And he does forgive me if I make messes, which I try not to. Um, but because we both know that there's nothing true about the experience I'm having other than it's a projection of my state of mind, then we can both chuckle about it and move on and lighten the mood. And that's, of course, a very trivial example. And, there are plenty of examples of that very same dynamic existing in very serious situations for people. And it's not that hard to see when, for example, like one example that comes to mind for me of a much bigger, more serious issue is, we've had friends who uh, lost their home in a fire a number of years back in Colorado. And they were just they had amazing attitudes about it. Everything they owned was gone, and they were simply grateful to be alive. And then other people who'd lost their homes were devastated and felt traumatized by it and couldn't seem to get themselves out of the depression and the anxiety that produced. And it's the very same experience. We lost everything, it's all gone. And it's not to say that that's not difficult. It's not to say that there won't be struggle around that. It's there's an overall thought experience that's projected from the inside on how you approach that. And you see that in people all the time. Some people get really sucked into that movie in their head, and other people know that they have choice around which movie to believe, um, and have a totally different experience because of it. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up by saying, again, please don't take my word for it. Just explore for yourself. Notice the ups and downs of your own state of mind, your own state of being on a daily basis, and what kind of thought experience that creates for you. And notice it in other people, not in order to manipulate it, not in order to have a more positive experience, just in order to notice. Because again, when you're in the movie theater, you don't have to convince yourself moment by moment that it's just a projector and it's not real. You just know. And that's enough. And you can go ahead and just relax into the experience of whatever's coming up, whatever's on the screen, and not worry about it too much, not worry about having to change the movie, right? If it's not a nice movie, well, I better think positive and make sure I have a better movie playing. That's really not the point. It's not worrying about what's on the screen and looking to how it works rather than the content of the movie. That's really the trick. So that's where I'll leave you. Thanks for listening. Till next time.